There's a word many of us use way too much: sorry. We say it when we're late, we say it when we speak up, and sometimes we even say it for simply existing. But the truth is, not everything deserves an apology. Some things are part of who you are, and apologizing for them only shrinks your confidence and gives away your power. Today, I want to share with you 5 things you should never apologize for, because the moment you stop saying sorry for these, you start living with real freedom. Being true to yourself means allowing your identity, your character, and your values to shine through without shrinking them down for the sake of someone else's comfort. Too often, we adjust ourselves like we're turning down the volume on who we really are. We walk into rooms and feel like we need to be less loud, less passionate, less confident, less emotional, because we're worried that someone will judge us, misunderstand us, or think we're too much. But here's the reality: the people who can't handle your authenticity are often the ones who benefit when you silence yourself. They don't have to grow, they don't have to adjust, they don't have to be challenged, because you've already decided to fold yourself into a smaller version of who you really are. And the danger of that is, over time, you forget what it feels like to live freely. You end up apologizing for things that never deserved an apology in the first place. Your laugh, your accent, your personality, your boldness, your creativity. Being true to yourself is not about being perfect, it's about being real. When you say what you mean, when you stand on what you believe, when you walk into a space knowing you don't need to be a mirror of everyone else, you claim a kind of freedom that no approval can buy. You stop playing the game of pleasing, and you start playing the game of living. And that's not arrogance, that's honesty. It's the courage to say, this is who I am, and I'm not going to shrink it down to make you comfortable. Because the truth is, if you live your whole life trying to be liked by everyone, you'll never be respected by yourself. Setting boundaries is one of the most powerful acts of self-respect you can ever practice, yet so many people feel guilty the moment they do it. It almost feels like when you draw a line, you owe someone an apology for protecting your own peace. But boundaries are not punishments. They are not walls built to push people away. They are bridges that keep relationships healthy and balanced. A life without boundaries will always leave you drained, resentful, and stretched thin, because when you constantly say yes out of fear, you end up betraying yourself. Boundaries are not about being harsh or cold. They're about recognizing your limits, honoring your capacity, and giving yourself permission to say no when something does not align with your well-being. People may not always like it when you set boundaries, because it challenges their access to you. It challenges the comfort of always having you available. It challenges the habit of taking without giving. But the truth is, every strong relationship is built on respect, and respect can't exist where boundaries are ignored. When you say, I need space, or I can't take that on right now, or that doesn't work for me, you are not being rude, you are being clear. And clarity is a gift. It eliminates confusion, it keeps resentment from building, and it allows the people around you to know exactly where you stand. When you don't set boundaries, you allow others to write the rules of your life for you, and eventually you begin to feel like a visitor in your own story. Setting boundaries takes courage, because it means valuing your energy enough to protect it. It means putting strength behind your yes by making your no just as strong. It means refusing to apologize for guarding your mental, emotional, and physical health. Boundaries are the language of self-worth, and when you speak that language consistently, you not only protect yourself, but you also teach others how to treat you. Pursuing your dreams is one of the most misunderstood parts of life, because the moment you start walking towards something bigger than where you are, people around you will start projecting their fears onto you. They'll say it's unrealistic. They'll say you should be satisfied with what you have. They'll try to remind you of all the risks and all the reasons it might not work. And the danger is, if you're not careful, you'll start carrying their fears as if they belong to you. But the truth is, dreams don't live in other people's minds. They live in yours, and they were placed there for a reason. Every single person who has ever achieved something meaningful had to walk through the noise of other people's doubt. They had to make peace with being misunderstood. They had to push forward even when no one clapped for them. And they had to keep going without apologizing for wanting more. Wanting more doesn't mean you're ungrateful. It means you see potential. It means you believe there's something better on the other side of hard work. It means you're willing to build when others are only willing to settle. And the truth is, most people are uncomfortable with someone else chasing their dream because it forces them to look at the dreams they've buried. So when you start moving, they'll either cheer you on or they'll try to hold you back. And sometimes it's the people closest to you who struggle the most with your growth. But that can't stop you, because your dream isn't waiting for their approval, it's waiting for your commitment. Pursuing your dream is not selfish, it's necessary, because when you live in alignment with what you were created to do, you don't just lift yourself, you inspire others to believe in their own path. And the irony is, the same people who doubted you in the beginning are often the ones who celebrate you in the end, because once they see the fruit, they forget how much they resisted the seed. Saying no is one of the hardest skills to practice, not because the word is complicated, but because we've been conditioned to believe that declining something makes us difficult, unkind, or ungrateful. From an early age, we're taught to please, to keep the peace, to avoid conflict, and so we end up overcommitting, overextending, and overpromising until we're running on fumes. But here's the truth. Every time you say yes to something you don't actually want, you're silently saying no to something you do want. You're giving away your time, your energy, and your focus to something that doesn't serve you, and that trade always costs more than you realize. Saying no doesn't make you rude, it makes you real. It means you value your time enough not to waste it. It means you honor your energy enough not to pour it into places where it gets drained. And the people who get offended when you say no are usually the ones who are benefiting from your inability to set limits. They were used to your yes. They were comfortable with your compliance. They were counting on your guilt to keep you tied to them. And that's why learning to say no without apology is one of the most freeing things you'll ever experience. No is a filter. It's a gatekeeper. It's the thing that protects the best parts of you from being scattered into places that don't deserve them. It doesn't mean you don't care. It doesn't mean you don't love people. It means you finally understand that your resources are limited and they must be directed with wisdom. There's power in recognizing that your yes becomes more valuable when it isn't given away cheaply. When you say no, you're actually creating space for the yes that truly matters, the yes that aligns with your purpose, the yes that leads you toward growth, the yes that doesn't leave you empty but fills you with meaning. And the more comfortable you become with saying no, the more you realize that you don't need to justify it. You don't need to explain it. You don't need to dress it up with excuses, because no by itself is enough. Prioritizing your mental health is one of the most important decisions you will ever make, yet it's often the one that people feel the most pressure to apologize for. Somewhere along the way, society made it seem like exhaustion is a badge of honor and burnout is a sign of strength, as if constantly running on empty proves your worth. But the truth is, ignoring your mental health doesn't make you strong. It makes you silently collapse inside while you keep smiling on the outside. Taking care of your mind is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's realizing that the way you think, the way you feel, and the way you process the world around you directly shapes the quality of your life. And if your mind is constantly overwhelmed, constantly anxious, constantly heavy, then no amount of pretending on the surface is going to change what's really happening underneath. When you take time to rest, when you go for therapy, when you step away from situations that are toxic, when you admit that you're not okay and you need a break, you're not failing, you're choosing life. You're choosing clarity over chaos, peace over pressure, healing over hiding. The people who shame you for taking care of your mental health are usually the ones who benefit from you staying silent about your struggles, because the moment you speak up, the moment you pull back, the moment you take time for yourself, it forces them to face the reality that you are not invincible and you are not endlessly available. And that truth makes some people uncomfortable because it removes their easy access to your energy. But prioritizing your mental health teaches you that your value doesn't come from how much you can endure. It comes from how well you can sustain yourself while still being present, whole, and alive. It teaches you that saying, "I need help," is not a sign of being broken. It's a sign of being brave enough to fight for your own well-being. And the more you honor your mental health, the more you realize that every other area of your life, your relationships, your work, your dreams, your joy, depends on it. Having different opinions is one of the most natural parts of being human, yet it's something so many people feel pressured to apologize for. From the moment we're young, we're conditioned to agree to fit in, to keep quiet if our perspective challenges the crowd. And because of that conditioning, a lot of us end up shrinking our voice, nodding along with things we don't actually believe and pretending we're on the same page just to avoid being the odd one out. But the truth is, disagreement doesn't make you wrong, it makes you real. Having your own perspective means you've thought for yourself, you've processed through your experiences, and you've come to a conclusion that reflects your truth. That's not rebellion, that's authenticity. And when you learn to stand by your opinion without apology, you discover the freedom of living as your own person instead of as a shadow of someone else. The people who demand that you always agree with them are usually the ones who fear having their ideas challenged, because challenge forces growth, and growth is uncomfortable. But you're not here to make everyone comfortable. You're here to live with integrity. There's power in saying, I see it differently, and not feeling the need to soften it with a sorry, because your opinion matters. Your perspective is shaped by a unique journey that no one else has walked. And when you silence that, you're robbing the world of a voice that was meant to be heard. Having different opinions doesn't mean you can't still love. It doesn't mean you can't still respect. It doesn't mean you can't still connect. It simply means you're bringing honesty into the conversation. And honesty is what makes relationships stronger. If everyone agrees all the time, nothing changes, nothing evolves, nothing grows. The progress we see in the world today was built on the courage of people who dared to think differently, people who didn't apologize for their perspective, even when it made them stand alone. Walking away from toxicity is one of the bravest choices you will ever make, but it's also one of the choices that often comes with the most guilt. We live in a culture that glorifies endurance, that tells you to hold on no matter how heavy it gets, that praises loyalty even when loyalty is destroying you. And because of that, people stay in places, in relationships, in environments that eat away at their peace, their self-worth, their confidence, all because they feel like leaving would make them the bad person. But the truth is, staying in toxicity doesn't make you loyal. It makes you lose yourself little by little. Walking away doesn't mean you didn't care. It doesn't mean you didn't try. It doesn't mean you gave up too soon. It means you finally realized your health, your sanity, and your future are worth more than being stuck in a cycle that only drains you. Toxicity can show up in so many forms: the friend who constantly belittles you, the relationship where love feels more like control, the workplace that leaves you anxious every morning, the family dynamic that manipulates you with guilt. And if you keep apologizing for protecting yourself from those environments, you'll stay trapped in them far longer than you were ever meant to. Walking away is not weakness, it's strength. It's the strength to say, I deserve peace. It's the strength to believe that leaving behind what's toxic makes room for what's healthy. It's the strength to trust that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop watering dead plants and move toward the places where growth is still possible. And yes, people will criticize you for it because your decision to leave shines a light on their decision to stay, and that discomfort often turns into judgment. But their opinion doesn't define your worth, and their disapproval doesn't erase your right to step away. Walking away teaches you that your well-being is not up for negotiation, that your energy is not a bottomless supply, and that you don't have to apologize for choosing yourself when the alternative is losing yourself. Loving yourself is something that should feel natural, yet for so many people it feels like an act of rebellion. Somewhere along the way, we were taught that putting ourselves first makes us selfish, that speaking kindly to ourselves makes us arrogant, that taking pride in who we are is somehow wrong. So what happens is, we grow into adults who are quick to compliment others but slow to acknowledge our own worth, quick to pour love into others but hesitant to pour any into ourselves. And in that hesitation, we begin to apologize for even the smallest acts of self-care, for taking a break, for celebrating a win, for choosing rest, for setting a standard on how we want to be treated. But here's the truth. Loving yourself is not selfish, it's survival. It is the foundation that every other part of your life is built on. When you know how to love yourself, you no longer accept crumbs and call it a meal. You no longer beg for validation that you can give to yourself. You no longer bend and break just to earn the approval of people who were never going to appreciate you anyway. Loving yourself means you stop apologizing for existing, for taking up space, for having a voice, for having dreams. It means you recognize that you are worthy not because of what you produce, not because of who accepts you, but simply because you are. And when you carry that kind of love within you, it changes the way you show up in every area of life. You stop clinging to toxic people because you realize your value isn't tied to their presence. You stop staying silent when something hurts you because you understand your voice matters. You stop comparing yourself to everyone else because you realize your journey is not supposed to look like theirs. Loving yourself teaches you to hold your head high even when others doubt you, to be gentle with yourself even when you fall short, to extend grace to yourself even when you're learning. And the more you practice it, the more you see that self-love isn't about building walls, it's about building roots, so that no matter what storms come, you know you are strong enough to stand because your worth is not up for debate. Growing at your own pace is one of the most important truths you can hold on to, yet it's one of the things people feel the most pressure to apologize for. We live in a world that constantly measures success on someone else's timeline, that tells you by a certain age you should have this career, this relationship, this money, this recognition. And if you don't, you start feeling like you're behind, like you've failed, like you need to explain why your journey doesn't look like theirs. But growth is not a race, it's not a competition, it's not about keeping up with anyone else. It's about moving forward in the way that is right for you. Some people bloom early, some bloom later, and both are perfectly okay, because what matters isn't when you arrive, it's that you keep moving toward becoming the best version of yourself. Apologizing for your pace only steals the joy of your process. When you try to force your growth to match someone else's, you end up living a life that doesn't even belong to you, chasing milestones that don't reflect your true calling. The truth is, some of the strongest trees take the longest time to grow their roots, and the deeper the roots, the taller and stronger they stand when the storms come. So when you see others moving faster, it doesn't mean you're behind. It means your process looks different, and that difference is not something to hide or be ashamed of. Growth is deeply personal. It's shaped by your past, your challenges, your strengths, your lessons, and nobody else can dictate how fast that should happen. The people who pressure you to hurry up are usually the ones who measure their worth by comparison, and comparison is the fastest way to lose sight of your own path. Growing at your own pace is about patience, it's about trust, it's about knowing that timing matters, and that rushing something before it's ready only leaves it fragile. Outgrowing people and places is one of the most uncomfortable parts of life, but it's also one of the most necessary, and yet it's the very thing people are made to feel guilty about. There comes a time when the version of you that once fit into certain circles no longer fits, not because you stopped caring, not because you became arrogant, but simply because you've grown. Growth changes what you tolerate, it changes what you crave, it changes how you see yourself and what you're willing to accept. And when that shift happens, you start noticing the conversations that used to excite you now drain you. The environments that once felt familiar now feel too small. The relationships that once felt safe now feel heavy. But instead of embracing that change, many people shrink back into the old mold because they're afraid of the label that comes with moving on. They don't want to be called disloyal. They don't want to be seen as selfish. They don't want to deal with the disappointment of others who expected them to stay the same forever. But the truth is, you were never meant to stay the same forever. Outgrowing doesn't mean you hate them. It doesn't mean you forgot the good memories. It doesn't mean you don't appreciate what that place or that person gave you. It simply means you can no longer fit into a chapter that has already ended. And if you keep apologizing for outgrowing, you'll spend your life trapped in cycles that no longer nurture you, living in places where your soul feels restless, surrounded by people who only know the outdated version of you. Outgrowing is a sign of life. It's proof that you are moving forward. It's evidence that you refuse to remain stagnant. And yes, people will take it personally. They will say you've changed, but change is the point. You were not created to stay in the same mindset, the same environment, the same circle forever. You were created to evolve, to expand, to move toward new spaces that match the person you are becoming instead of the person you used to be. At the end of the day, life is too short to keep saying sorry for the very things that make you whole. You don't need to apologize for being true to yourself, for setting boundaries, for chasing your dreams, for saying no, for taking care of your mind, for having your own opinions, for walking away from what's toxic, for loving yourself, for growing at your own pace, or for outgrowing people and places that no longer match your journey. These are not flaws, they are freedoms. And every time you stop apologizing for them, you take your power back. You teach the world how to treat you by how you treat yourself. And when you stop shrinking to make others comfortable, you finally start living in a way that makes you proud. So don't hand out apologies where they don't belong. Save them for the times you truly make a mistake. But when it comes to living as your authentic self, stand tall, stand firm, and move forward without regret.